Hi everyone. I will just take another 10-15 odd seconds for the audience to build up. We're also live on Facebook. So if you're not here and you're on Facebook, thank you for coming on a Friday, bright Friday afternoon. Thanks to all the attendees who are attending currently as we speak. Um, right. Just before I start, I wanted to quickly give an intro about the organization which is doing this. The organization is called Favcy. You might have seen it in the various creatives communications that have been distributed across by various partners. I'm Nishchay. I'm one of the founding partners of Favcy. Favcy basically works with non-tech entrepreneurs and co-builds and funds digital platforms for them itself. So if you have an idea and are looking to start, because we generally work with idea stage entrepreneurs, we would be the right set of partners as we speak. Um, Raghav, who's from my team, will be shooting out a message just in case if you guys want to get in touch for evaluation on your idea, how we can possibly work together or work and go build the product together. More than happy to discuss and take this forward. Thank you so much for hearing this out. What I'll do is I'll get towards the meat of the matter today. We have Shashank Randev, sir, who is from 100X.VC. He's one of the founder VCs of 100X.VC, who will be joining in. And what he'll be doing is he'll be explaining the background and the thesis that 100X.VC has. Also, he will be talking about a lot more mental models that VCs have in the evaluation and the selection of companies that they finally fund, and also the funding trends going forward, the trends that he saw which were coming in, and so on and so forth. So over to you, Shashank sir.
Thanks, Nishchay. Thanks for having me over here. I hope I'm audible. Should I be speaking a little louder or this is good?
You're audible, sir. You're bang on.
Super. Great. So, thanks for having me and glad to be here. I think these are the best type of sessions we can have in such times. A lot of these engagement activities are very, very important, and kudos to you and your team for organizing such events. Hi to the audience. My name is Shashank Randev. I'm the founder VC at 100X.VC. We are an early stage investor. We started the fund in July of 2019 with the thesis of investing in very early stage entrepreneurs at a stage of minimal viable product or early traction. And we do these investments through an instrument called iSafe, which is India's simple agreement for future equity. The whole concept is to close transactions and investments at a seed stage very early on, rather than elongating that entire process, which seems to be the current process in the industry. So hence we launched 100X with the objective of investing in 100 startups through iSafe so that we can close transactions within 20 to 25 days upon expression of interest. We've gone ahead and invested in 20 startups till date. These are listed on our website. You can have a look at them. We're very sector agnostic. We want to come in very early. We work very closely with the companies and we help them not only generate business, but also then help them to raise a larger round, which could be Series A and beyond, and basically work very closely and hand in hand towards their growth story. Our details can be found on 100X.VC, which is the website. I have 3 other partners with me, in fact 4. Sanjay Mehta, who's been a very active angel investor in the community, has been part of the ecosystem for many years and has done 130 plus investments in his personal capacity. Is the founding partner for 100X.VC. We've got Ninat Karpe, who's the ex-managing director for Computer Associates and ex-CEO for Aptech, who comes in with his business acumen and having the experience of having worked in large organizations. We've got Yagnesh Sangrachka, who's the ex-CFO for Mahesh Tutorials and an ex-operating partner for Bessemer Venture Partners, and having large experience in terms of venture capital and global venture capital firms. So brings in that piece. And the youngest partner is Vatsal Kanakia, who's done 15 odd investments on behalf of the family office, which is Mehta Family Office, which happens to be our LP for the fund. and he is the CTO for the fund and brings in the experience of evaluating deals from a tech perspective. So that's a very quick introduction about 100X, what we do, and what kind of companies we look at. And yeah, happy to take it from there. Nischay, what do we, any specific question?
So, not, I mean, specific questions. I think what we wanted to actually hear about was more as to how do you go about evaluating companies? What are the mental models that you generally look into the selection of the companies? I think you've given us a good background. Maybe also a little bit on the ticket sizes that you generally disburse on,
Sure.
the number of deals that you plan to do in the coming years, the number of deals that you plan to see.
Sure. So, very quickly before I dive into all that, my personal experience has been for the last 10 years, I've actively worked with the ecosystem. So I was the founding member for a company called VCCH, which is the subsidiary of VC Circle, which got acquired by News Corporation in 2015. So I have worked extensively with venture capital and private equity industry, and obviously seen the first stage and evolution of the whole ecosystem come about and the challenges which were there. And when we decided to start 100X.VC, the core objective was to provide seed capital, which becomes the most inherent problem for early stage companies without diluting well in advance. So our ticket size is between 25 lakhs to 1 CR, where we want to deploy this money and provide this money very quickly to the founders in a span of 20 to 25 days. And we start working with the founders only after we've given them the money. With that in mind, we work very closely with the founders, and this happens through a safe instrument. And our objective is to make 100 investments in a year. That's the objective we started off with. Obviously, the current COVID crisis has put a certain stop in terms of the sectors we can back. We're very sector agnostic. But also, since we are a seed fund, we want to ensure that the companies we back and we invest into need to have the inherent ability to A, generate revenues and business in the coming months of 3 to 6 months, and second, their ability based on that business generated, their ability to raise future rounds. And within that context, whichever companies we back need to fall under these criteria. And considering the current COVID crisis, a lot of sectors are not able to generate business or not able to build out solutions which are going to be bought by consumers. And hence, by that logic, we are looking very specifically at sectors which we feel can do well, can sell well, can generate revenue in the next 3 to 6 months, and then hence have the ability to raise a future round, and we can help them raise the future round. So that's the modus operandi. While we're doing all of this, I think the core objective is to uh, to ensure that the fundraising cycle of early stage entrepreneurs should be shortened. They should be receiving money to build out their products. They should be receiving money to kind of roll out their first paid POC opportunity, and hence whichever companies we bring on as a portfolio investment. As an example, if it's a B2B startup, then we are ensuring through our network, which happens to be 300 plus CIOs in India, can we then do a top-down alignment with those companies and help our portfolio companies to get a paid POC opportunity or a recurring business opportunity over there. And these are the kind of models which we try and work across within our portfolio companies. Um, and uh, and yeah, so our objective is 100 companies a year. We've done 20. We will be investing in the coming months again. We intend to invest in 15 set of companies right now. We've been speaking a lot of companies. We've issued term sheets in the last 45 days. But as I said, we'll become a little more sector specific because we don't know how this crisis is going to evolve. We don't know what COVID means. I don't think so anybody understands the full impact of this. But that being said, it's an opportunity. Crisis is always an opportunity, and this is the best time for entrepreneurs to sit back, ideate, and figure out what can be the emerging models going forward, which will challenge the millennial generation, which will challenge the current Indian population to start buying, to start servicing, to start producing in a different manner with a lack of physical contact. If entrepreneurs are able to address this through technology, if entrepreneurs are able to build out solutions and services and products which can attempt to answer these questions, which can attempt to build out these unique IPs, then 100X.VC is always happy because we have a mandate to invest in 100 companies. So, the more the merrier. And that's the kind of phase we are in. That's the kind of stage we are in. We are not your typical VC fund. We are a discovery platform for the larger VCs. And since Sanjay, Ninad, myself, Yagnesh, and Vatsal, we've all have had our own vantage points. We have these existing relations with larger VCs. And we want to then help these companies grow and then take them to the larger VCs where it becomes a curated platform for these growth stage VC funds to look at our invested portfolio companies, which makes sense because we worked really hard with them. And I'm happy to say that the last 20 companies we've invested in, 14 of them have gone ahead and raised money just in the last 6 months, upwards of $2.5 million. And that's quite a significant amount. And the very ability they've been able to raise this money, some of them have closed their rounds in the last 45 days, is because they were generating business. They were profitable business. They were able to build a solution which was required by the consumers. And I think these are the things which we look for while we are selecting companies. But then all of this fits in if the founding team is cohesive, if the founding team is collaborative, if the founding team can come in and their ability to kind of keep pivoting when the shit hits the roof, which seems to be the case right now. So that's the quick sense of how we look at early stage entrepreneurs.
Just a quick thing before we move on and we talk about funding trends going forward and something that you see also. I just wanted to understand, have you noticed any pattern? I mean, you might have not started with a pattern, right? When you were dispersing across those 20 odd companies. But my question across to you is very similar. Do you see a pattern emerging amongst the 20 odd companies that you've seen? I mean, whether it was something that you planned on or whether you didn't, but do you see a pattern in the 20 companies that you've invested in, sir?
I didn't understand the question. Pattern in
as in, the reason as to why. So, for example, you might have disbursed without understanding. I mean, for example, that you saw this company was good and you disbursed, right? But if you now look back in hindsight across on those 20 companies, do you see certain things which were correct over there that because of which you've given the entities and the companies or the products the check itself from your side? So I'm just saying what are the mental models that you have?
Sure. So I think from perspective, there are 5 things which we look at when we're looking at deals. We're looking at the founding team and their pedigree and their ability, as I said, to kind of work together, bring in complementary skill sets, whether it's business, whether it's technology, whether it's operations. So that's the first bit. The second bit is obviously the total addressable market. Is the space here to stay? Is it likely to grow in the future? And how big is the opportunity if they continue to build upon it and hence generate, the kind of market they can access in terms of revenue generation. And inherently, the third point then becomes the business model. While most of the entrepreneurs might not have the right answer for a business model, we then intend to kind of work towards them. If they have a wrong business model, can they pivot within that and make it more broadened? Fourth and fifth are essentially our ability to have 20x return. And the last most unique point would be the company or the founder's ability to generate a moat. So while we consider all these 5 points, with that we invested in 20. And I think all our selection based on our own personal experiences and Sanjay's, experience of having invested in 130 companies in his personal capacity, I think we hit most of the aces in our portfolio company. The ones which are kind of struggling right now in the last 45 days is a function of the lockdown per se and their inability to interact with consumers face to face. So for instance, and within that, we've got businesses which are consumer facing are still doing well. For instance, we've got a company called Renal Project, which is a dialysis center startup. It requires people to physically go
Okay.
and do dialysis. It's doing wonderfully well because a dialysis patient will always be a dialysis patient, right? They
Yeah.
still need to go through the medical procedure. So that company is still doing well despite the fact it's in a lockdown. That is a healthcare service, very, very important. We've got a chocolate brand, Decadence, which you would have thought might not do well because of the current lockdown. Yet, as I was mentioning to somebody else, and one of the senior veterans of a venture capital fund had told me that the Kirana stores nowadays have come to the rescue, as opposed to the e-commerce stores, right? And within that, if certain brands or consumer-facing brands have been placed in these Kirana stores, now I'm going to be eating new fresh chocolates or newer brands and trying it out because anyways the supply is less, right? So these guys figured out how to reach certain Kirana stores or a chain of stores and place their products there. So in hindsight,
Modern retail mode, not on modern retail mode, but rather the Kirana stores, which was standalone mom and pop. Brilliant.
correct. And Kirana, and also there, if you look at other larger societies, particularly in Bombay, right? So there's a Kirana store, Om Mart. Om Mart has 52 branches within suburban Bombay. Now that in itself is a huge retail. So those kind of Kirana stores happen to be prevalent in tier one cities, and within that, if you get access, so such brands can build out. So that's worked out really well despite the lockdown. We actively invest in deep tech products. So companies like Data Sutram and Road Metrics. Data Sutram essentially helps out with satellite imaging. And currently, within this lockdown, they've been able to pivot to a better use case where they're providing now satellite imagery in terms of providing data to the government and private healthcare bodies to figure out where you can find hospitals which might have extra beds. So such brilliant use cases are coming out. When we looked at a lot of companies, I think 90% of what we thought fit into how they're doing right now in terms of business. But 10% we had not imagined in terms of how they will be pivoting and enhancing their business during the lockdown. And a lot of companies have done tremendous modeling around how they can continue to generate business and continue to work from home and then be engaged. So in hindsight, I think the selection process of what we wanted to do with these companies, which were B2B and B2C, have worked out fairly well. And I think the very fact that 14 of them have gone ahead and raised money through safe and two growth stage VC funds, which we'll be making an announcement very soon, has gone ahead and shown that the stories are here to stay. And more importantly, forgetting investors backing companies. More importantly, founders building out things. I think that motivation should not end, whether it's a lockdown, whether it's COVID, because I think investors are looking for good opportunities. We as a fund are looking at opportunities and we'll continue to invest.
Perfect. Um, Shashank sir, I mean, you talked about post-COVID being one of the more uncertain times, at least from your perspective. Uh, I just wanted to understand what are the trends that you see happening as you go along, right? So, what do you see as the sectors which are really popping up? Ones which are being talked about a lot, for example, gaming is one, e-gaming is one, anything related to communications, another one, health tech is another one which is coming out. These are the obvious ones, right? So what are the non-obvious ones which you feel will have like a really large potential of running in the post-COVID world as well?
So I think nobody has a right answer for this because none of the entrepreneurs, in fact, entrepreneurs are best placed to answer that question. None of the investors have seen this kind of a cycle. And we as investors learn a lot from what the founders are pitching to us. And that's when we realize what are the kind of sectors emerging. But our take right now, and my personal take is, while you mentioned gaming will pick up, and I've been an advisor in esports startup, I think esports is not going to pick up because esports as a function requires audience in public, large audience gatherings, and their revenue model largely revolves around sponsorships. And I'm talking about these esports companies which are teams playing certain games like Dota 2 and stuff like that. So those businesses while I'm a huge supporter and I've been on the, uh, I've been engaged with the esports community for quite some time, that piece, I'm not sure how it will scale. On the other side, online gaming and enabling, gaming opportunities to connect peer-to-peer gamers, I think that might emerge because there's an availability of data in tier 2, tier 3 cities now, thanks to the whole geo, and that's a whole different argument, geo. But there's so much happening in terms of cheaper data that gaming as such will definitely have multiple bifurcations.
Got it.
But you know, clear winners which will emerge is collaborative tools, so SaaS platforms, right? Platforms. A lot of companies, you must have heard, TCS has decided to get all its employees to work out of home for the next 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, within that, what will happen is, and these are large companies. A company like TCS saying that means a lot. This means they're not only looking for a software which can manage these people remotely, they're also looking for people who are, how much time are they spending in terms of logging in, their performance metrics, they're mapping out how much time they're spending on a project, their deliverables. A lot of elements to manage people remotely as opposed to a manager on the floor speaking with the team, right? So in terms of collaborative SaaS tools, I think that piece will really, really pick up.
Got it.
In terms, all businesses which were offline, obviously will need to start looking at online as a space, and hence comes in the whole huge category, and we back one of these companies, influencer marketing, right? And we have a company in our portfolio called Reco Social. Uh, I think these companies will really, really pick up. The whole media agency business will go for a toss because your traditional media agency businesses will need to go digital. And today, the biggest brand proponents happen to be not your large time celebrities, but also these influencers, which do not have a direct reach, and platforms which are enabling the ability to reach out to such influencers is very critical. So those kind of solutions will really, really evolve right now because there'll be a larger push of brands pushing through digital landscape. And how do you do that? Which are the tools which can enable that? Would be a very, very interesting space. Obviously, telemedicine in healthcare, definitely a lot of people would prefer to have the first or the second indicative treatment meetings online as opposed to going physically to doctors, and then only go to a doctor when it is absolutely required, because the fear psychosis of the whole COVID situation. I mean, we were supposed to have a lockdown only till May 3rd, and it's been extended to May 17th. This is version 3.0. And I'm, to be very candid and upfront, I don't see anything happening or anything changing up till June 15th. So be prepared to, get used to not meeting people for quite some time. And within that, there'll be medical emergencies. So the healthcare system fundamentally is going to be pushed towards really thinking hard. How can you service potential patients? So your predictive healthcare analytics space will also emerge a lot over and above telemedicine. So there are multiple streams because broadly speaking, there are only 5 to 7 large sectors, right? Healthcare, finance and fintech, and within that there'll be subsets which will really emerge. Another one, while all this is happening, and I was talking to somebody else the other day, the ability of these products to work on a low bandwidth would be very critical. And hence, telecommunication companies and telecommunication enablers will have a huge opportunity to leverage how they can build solutions. So these are the large elements. Obviously, within this, no better time to be building out AI solutions and ML solutions because the data would be emerging. So can you now really work on building out an effective AI tool which is having enough data and is able to provide you information or predictive analytics, which a lot of companies claim but are not able to build it out or are not able to deliver. And I think those are the spaces which will really emerge. I'm still a huge fan of uh, you know uh, intelligence and data within healthcare, but within retail tech. That's been a personal favorite for me. I've missed a few investments in my time. I've also gone ahead and backed a few. Retail tech, while retail physically will take a hit, but how can you then enable consumers, and what kind of buying behaviors are going to emerge? So that's a space which people should be looking at. So retail tech, fashion tech. Are people going to start renting out clothes? Are people actually going to wear official clothes? Or how much? What's going to be the amount of frequency for which they'll be dressing up? What are the occasions? So I've invested in a company called Style Look in my personal capacity, which is a fashion tech rental platform for women in the age group of 28 to 30. And they can subscribe to official wear. And since the lockdown, they've not been able to physically send out the boxes. So how are they engaging? So they're pivoting. They're not, because while they were delivering this curated design wear for women, they were also capturing data on these women's preferences. And hence the designers were able to kind of build upon this data and create a platform which will help curate these design patterns per se, right? So building on that information, while they continue to supply and sell through the subscription boxes, they build this platform, which in itself is a huge repository, and they're working towards that. So multiple sectors will emerge, but people will eventually go back on the streets. People will start interacting. Lockdown will eventually end. So a lot of these businesses which have been hit right now will come back into existence. But now this time around, they'll be different. So possibly they'll have lesser footfalls. And how can they then engage the current audience? So mindset change will be there. Every business is here to stay. And agri-tech and businesses which involve fruit and vegetables, all these businesses, home delivery of vegetables has been a huge opportunity. And one of our portfolio company has been addressing this specific problem, and they've done just phenomenally well. So there is no one sector which I can say is likely. I think the canvas is open. It's for the entrepreneurs to pick up whichever field they want to and start building on it, because it's just a new clean slate.
Okay, perfect. I think so. What Shashank sir is trying to say to everyone is that it's a clean slate completely for you guys. I think if the world is going to reimagine a lot of things as we speak. So what I'm going to do, Shashank sir, now. Thank you so much for an insightful session. I'm going to open it up to the various questions. We've already had 17 questions while you were speaking. So we're going to work this in two formats. We're going to have live questions also, which are going to be asked by people in the attendee set itself.
Sure.
So anyone who has a question can raise their hands. I'll get them onto the panel. And what we'll also do is we'll go through certain questions which have come up over here on the text-based side of it itself, and we'll answer them live as we speak. Okay, so I'll just start with the question and the person who's asking the question, and I'll then refer back to you to answer that. Okay. So, sir, there is Harish Nuwata who's been talking about how do you see food tech startups working in street food post-COVID? Is there any opportunity, or it's a drawback for you?
Sorry, food tech startups?
Food tech startups working in street food, right? So, street food, yeah. Standardizing street food at some level. He's asking whether you see an opportunity or it's actually a drawback in itself.
So, I mean, food tech, which enables, if they're into street food making, I don't think so. People will be doing that. If the whole business model is around generating revenue out of selling something on the street through an app or whatever, those businesses will definitely take a hit. We've invested in a company called Food Monk, which is basically providing automation of caterers back end. And their clients have been large corporates with having larger cafeterias. While the solution is there, the business will only get more aggressive once the office is open, once the large caterers open up to bringing in large people of number of people into the cafeteria. So food tech, I think people will choose to go, and we recently had a podcast, so people can go to our YouTube page. or even the website where we have a live sessions page where chef Sanjeev Kapoor recently spoke with my partner Ninad Karpe talking about the emergence of food and food tech companies, and I think you guys should pay you should definitely listen to that. But the inherent point is a lot of people will start eating at home. They're spending a lot of time at home, uh, but people will stop going to restaurants. The physical interaction will end. Can you then enable some level of delivery mechanism? Don't know. So I'm not particularly very excited about food tech, but again, that food tech space has been vacant for a very long time. So we've not seen we've seen food delivery companies. We've not seen food technology. So if you're building out vegetarian meat, in a laboratory and you're trying to supply that, I'm very interested. If you're trying to sell me vada pav on street through an app, I'm not interested. So food tech is, there's a lot of technology which is not coming through these days, and I think that place is still vacant, and there's a lot of scope to be witnessed over there.
Perfect. There are a lot of questions which are asking about your sector preference and what are you prioritizing on currently. So
As I said, I'm very sector agnostic. We are looking, as I started the conversation, if founders have figured out a way to, uh, continue to have a larger market in the next 8 months, if you can still continue to grow your business month on month, irrespective of COVID or not, those are the businesses which are inherently very interesting for us. That's the first thing. Second thing is, there are certain sectors which we will not be looking at for sure right now, at least for the next 3 months. And though I can say that out loudly, one is travel and travel tech for obvious reasons. And the second is mobility. I think we've backed a few two startups in the mobility sector in the previous set of investments. We don't intend to look at mobility per se right now. But besides that, as I said, we are very, very open. We are looking again ourselves as with no biases, with the only one objective: can founders convince us that there's a large market, and can they continue to sell and acquire new customers in the next 3 to 6 months? Very, very simple.
perfect. There's another interesting question by Anubhav Jain. He's asking, what are your thoughts on retail and fashion? E-commerce in India is not organized. I mean, so I think what he's meaning to say over there is that commerce, uh, at least fashion retail or retail is not organized. What kind of changes do you see in that market happening as we go along?
So
Not just
as I mentioned, Style Look, which is a personal portfolio of mine, the physical delivery of boxes was not happening. And as I mentioned earlier, I couldn't order anything from Amazon or Flipkart during this lockdown. It was my Kirana store guy who helped me out with, toothbrush, soap, dal, sabji, haldi, whatever you call it, right? Basics is where e-commerce failed in the last 60 to 70 days. Are they to be blamed? No, because they didn't have enough delivery people, right? Big Basket continued to kind of deliver in some capacity, but had inherent challenges. So that being said, that's one side of it. But e-commerce within in itself has a huge opportunity. There are multiple products in tier 2, tier 3 cities which can be placed online, which can be procured by people in this community. Vernacular play within that, vernacular play within the tier 2, tier 3 cities has a large take on it. Fashion and fashion tech in terms of trials. Can you work on augmented reality and virtual reality? These tools, which can enable the end purchase of a commodity, will need to be looked at. So it's a very broad question. I'm trying to kind of sum it, bring it down in terms of what could be the enablers for these things.
One follow-up which I have, Shashank sir, is you mentioned that you've invested in Stylook, and I've seen some trends happening, right? So one of the key trends which I've seen happening is that reseller models are something that a lot of people have started looking into, right? You look at it in RAN, it's a B2B2C sort of a model where they look into from a reseller capacity. You look at Misho, that's another good example of it. Do you see commerce primarily moving toward, and specifically in India, and now even more accelerated with the fact that there's so many pay cuts, job losses, which are happening as we speak because of COVID? People start taking up this as an opportunity where they start becoming resellers. And as you said also, right, it was the local guys who were helping each other out at that particular level. So do you see the penetration actually happening and organization of the disorganized market, and I mean, sort of disorganized plus a fragmented market going forward as we speak?
That's a good point. It's definitely food for thought. Inventory management for larger organizations. While your Flipkarts and Amazons have had their own inventory processes, and they've had hub and spoke models in terms of the inventory models, but within that, they were still not able to deliver. Right, like within Goregaon, where I stay in Mumbai, right, they were not able to deliver. But if I needed something, I could go to a Kirana store. So can then local household, can Nishchay and Shashank become in some capacity, some level of that model is definitely open, and that model has potential in India because the population is so high. And definitely, if some entrepreneur has something to build on this, definitely worth looking at.
Perfect. Perfect. So, Shashank, so what I'll do is I'll ask two live questions, and then post that you can take up any of the three questions which have come over here. So, anyone raising their hands right now, I'll start picking up their question and start getting them onto the panel itself. So, Prapon,
for the live question, I'd like the individual to say their name, where they're working at, what they're building out, and then the question.
perfect. So, Prapon, you're the first one. So, I've just got you on board. Just get your mic off, and you can ask your question. Prapun? Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Prapun.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Thank you so much. I'm Prapun, single founder from Tier 2 city. Basically, I'm from a HR background turned entrepreneur. So it's been like 5+ years my entrepreneurship journey started. I'm part of the startup ecosystem too. So the problem which I'm currently solving is helping founders to find the right talent from colleges through internship. In a process, I'm trying to develop an entrepreneur mindset for the students. So I'm looking for some insights. Do we have a good business model during this COVID situation for developing a personalized one-to-one internship? Is the question, sir?
So, if I understand, so you're a possible competition to an intern shala, right? Where you are able to provide interns.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's a great opportunity right now for interns to be working on projects. A lot of large organizations, a lot of mid-sized organizations where there's a lot of Excel work to, there's a lot of marketing initiative activities like social media, stuff like that. Those can be driven by interns. A lot of financial accounting can be also looked on the intern model. I think it's a good time and work. Depends on organization to organization. How many interns do they take in? What are the functions? If you're an FMCG company and interns were being hired to physically go distribute and physically go to tier 2, tier 3 cities and place products, I think those kind of internships might not kick in for a very long time. But besides that, I think
at this point of time, I'm focusing on engineering and management students. So one thing is programming skills. The second thing is where a person can focus on community building, brand building, or else growth hacking techniques.
I think technology. So I think technology, programming, coding interns would be the requirement for a lot of organizations.
Yes.
And I think if you are able to, the only challenge over there, Prapun, is that many of these institutes are not able to produce and provide talented individuals who can code like nobody's business, right? So there's challenges with Infosys and TCS hiring from campuses and then placing these guys for 3 months for another training program before they're ready to do a job. So I think that is the only
Exactly, sir.
challenge I see in this, because it's purely on the lack of the education system and their ability to produce individuals who can, do well. And there's so many engineering
True, true,
colleges. So
true,
that's
true. I have done some
that's an
biggest.
industry observation, but I think it's a good time to explore it right now.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So the
Papa.
one is, yeah, the one thing I'm focusing is currently we have a placement ratio of 22% across India. So every academic year there are 27 lakh students are joining, and only 6 lakh students are getting placed. And majority of the students are getting placed for the service-based industry where they're locked for another 2 years. So now I'm focusing connecting these students from the first year, first year and second year, and helping them connect to the right founders. So in a way, they'll experiment with the real world problems and become better
So
programmers.
if you can provide coders which are good, you map
Yeah.
that out at your end. And there are so many startups who can't afford to pay right now, and they're building great products, right? If you can
Yeah.
help these startups, get a good talented pool of interns, I think no better time.
Yes.
That will be the requirement, because startups should not be burning too high a capital. And there's definitely an opportunity for you, Prapun, to kind of work towards that. I think the bulk of your energy should go in curating the most efficient, talented interns. That doesn't happen with a lot of
Yep.
organizations. If you can map that out, then yes, great time to be doing it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Prabhan, for your question.
Thank you, Prapun.
Now we have, we got to pick someone. So Ishan's been asking a lot of questions on the other side, so I'll give him an opportunity to talk here itself. So Ishan, you're live now. You're allowed to talk. You can unmute yourself and you can ask your question. Ishan? Ishan, you're not audible as of now. I think he's gone off now. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll get another chap. Vignesh, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Vignesh, now you're audible. You're
Yeah.
off mute. What's your question for Shashank, sir?
Yeah. Hi, Shashank sir. Good evening. This is Vignesh from Taurus Robotics.
Hi.
So we are a deep tech startup working on one of world's most innovative and indigenous powertrain system for the $86 million immediate market demand of the Indian EV ecosystem. So I've already been in touch with you through mail. So from this session, what I observed is that let it be 100X.VC or even other VCs. So they are actually concentrating on deep tech startups which are software based at this moment. So what do you suggest on to clean tech startups or hardware startups like us on tackling this situation, on how to move forward with the fundraise?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, we are not only focusing on software. We are a sector agnostic fund, so we are looking at hardware as well. We've evaluated a lot of startups. Hence, we've been speaking with your team as well. But then there is, as I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, we are a seed fund, and hence we want to ensure that with this seed capital, are you able to build out? If it's a hardware which requires a heavy infusion of capital and engage with larger manufacturing plants, then there's only so much which we can provide.
Yeah.
So those are the things which we look at from a hardware perspective. That being said, I think it's a good time to be building what you are trying to build out, because there'll be a lot of automation required in manufacturing, in municipal corporations, from B2B to B2G.
Yes, sir.
We will be compelled, or not by we, I mean the government will be compelled to use and understand to bring out automation in municipal areas, whether it's, clean tech, cleaning, the pipes, so on and so forth. There have been companies, we've looked at companies from IIT Madras who've done exceptionally well. We worked on a project with them on GE's oil and gas for, again, figuring out underlying pipeline cleaning, and that was way back in 2016. So I think those trends will emerge, will come. Yes, unfortunately, India has fewer hardware focused funds.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
But that should not stop founders like yourself and your team to continue to build, because what funds might not immediately invest into as a hardware piece. You at an early stage have the power today and access to larger incubation centers run by the government in the form of Atal Incubation Center or Department of Science and Technology, which
Yeah.
are giving and providing very, very serious grants to help you build these out. I'm a personal mentor at Atal Incubation Centers and work very closely with 200 plus incubation centers across India, work very closely with Department of Science and Technology centers. And in fact, we work very, very closely with IIT Bombay, and all these incubation centers, irrespective of what stage you are at, get you access to government grants, which can help you build your products and then make it more market ready, where then investors can come in. I can name a fund, Unicorn Ventures. Anil Joshi is a very dear friend of mine. He invested in this company, and I'm forgetting the name of the company, but again, in a robotics company from Kerala, and
Okay.
they've done extremely well. It's the fund decided to make hardware investments, right? So it's not correct or it's not right to think that there aren't investors they're not looking at hardware investments. Yes, there are few, but there are, and to reach to them, I think you can build out your value prop by accessing the incubation centers and the government grants, which are very much out there, right?
Yeah.
Try and take leverage of this because Vignesh, I think, and I can say this through experience, 15 years into the ecosystem, never ever have I seen so much opportunity and so much access for entrepreneurs where they can access government, they can access private investors. You can have a conversation with me over Zoom. You have wonderful people like Nishchay organizing this, and you have access to LinkedIn. You've got access to multiple things. 15 years ago, we never had this. It was very difficult, right? So there are opportunities, there are provisions, there are access points for grants which founders need to push themselves to understand and reach out.
Got it, sir. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Okay, take care, Vignesh.
Yeah.
One last live question. Shashank, sir, whoever you want to pick up from here, I'll just get
Nishchay, you tried this, no worries.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna just go with Sanket Bansal to talk. Sanket, you're live now.
Yeah. Am I audible? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Sanket, you're audible.
Hi, sir. This is Sanket from HealthMart. So we are an e-pharma startup based in Delhi. So we are basically shipping in categories like homeopathy, Unani, and we've just started with allopathy. So we are a cash positive company, and I'm trying to get this company funded. I am the investment executive at this company. And the problem I'm facing is whenever I reach to an investor, be it over a mail, be it over WhatsApp, be it over.
Are you a founder?
No, I am the working employee at this startup.
And how old is the company?
4-year-old.
4-year-old company. Okay. And you're saying that whenever you reach out to investor, you face challenges.
Yeah. So when I try to reach out to an investor, I never get a response from any of the investors, be it over a mail or anything. And since I actually cannot find a fault the way I'm trying to reach them out, because I don't want to.
I think the fault lies in that your founder is not putting in the effort to reach out to investors. So, if it's a 4-year-old company, it's not that big a company. It's not a listed entity. So, the founders should be reaching out to the, investment community. I would definitely, if I get a pitch deck from, your company, I would expect the founder to be reaching out and having a conversation, because they are the best place to understand the holistic journey of the company and explain it to the investors. We've seen this a lot. We've seen this a lot where founders are not taking enough effort to pitch the company, where employees are more passionate, and it doesn't work for the investor community. So I think that could be one reason. The other reason could be the space. Sometimes investors don't reply to mails, which I feel is not the correct way. At 100X, what we try and do, even if we don't like a company, every mail is responded to. Every mail which is coming as a pitch deck, we respond to. So I can't really comment on the etiquettes of fund follows on that. But again, there are a lot of pitch decks come in, so maybe it can be a function of they not being able to respond to all the companies which they do not like. And the third is the space you might be in. and whatever information you're sharing with them in terms of your pitch deck or your note does not give in that impression or doesn't give those exact numbers which could be pleasing to that particular fund or a particular investor. So I think these are the three things which come to my mind in terms of why some investors might not be responding to your proposal.
Okay. There's one more question. My co-founders, I just update them with the mails I've sent, and the mails I've drafted.
If I may ask, what's the revenue of your company?
So we are doing a 18 CR GMV.
I don't understand. I don't understand why your founders can reach out to the investors. Why are you doing it on their behalf? Are you a stakeholder?
No, I'm not a stakeholder. I'm just.
That's the problem.
Okay. Okay. Because it is the initial round, and if somebody,
I just give you the answer. Your founders are raising the first round, and they feel they don't have the time to explain and reach out to investors. I think that's wherein the problem lies.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sanket, for your question. Now, sir, you have the lot of 36 questions in front of you. You can pick out whatever.
I have a hard stop because I have another session starting at 5 p.m. So I need to log out in another 4 minutes. But I'll just pick up any question. There's so many of them, but okay. Okay. Ideas are reach out to big players and market to discuss. How can we as an idea stage startup reach out to big players in market to discuss and collaborate? I don't understand this question, but let me understand. This is by Ajitesh Tripathi. If you're an idea stage, don't reach out to anybody. Build it and build it into a minimal viable product, and then reach out to the customers or potential customers who can use that and prove it to be a proof of concept, and then reach out to investors. I think that's my 2 cents on idea stage startups. Ideas don't get funded and nobody wants to invest in ideas. Ideas are dime a dozen. So whatever it helps you to change your idea to a minimal viable product and then kind of roll it out, I think you should be working towards that. Sorry, I'm a little direct and blunt in many ways. So no offense to anybody, but I think these are checks in today's times where founders need to be aware that everything is out there. You have access to a lot of things. All you need to do is build out something and people will come. So ideas don't mean anything in today's world.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Shashank.
I'll take up one more question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. No.
2 more minutes. So do you foresee an increase in M&A consolidation in startups as it becomes difficult to survive for third and fourth players in each category? That's a brilliant question Pranav Mittal has asked, and it's a question which needs to be looked at from a very different lens. Do I see that? Yes, I do foresee M&A consolidation in startups, and it is both, right? You might have built an IP, you just are not able to sell it for whatever reason. And there is a company which could be a mid-sized startup. They are able to sell it, but they don't have any unique thing to sell. Can you both come together and increase the horsepower, right? So it could be a bot company trying to build out something, but they don't have the right set of e-commerce players for a vertical, bot. As an example, very, very lucid example. And herein is a company which can use that technology, can use that algorithm. Those kind of synergies are possible. It's a good time to be looking at M&A. Yes, I foresee that happening a lot. And I'll take one last question.
Perfect.
All right. So is it possible to share Shashank's email ID where you can just reach out to us on pitch@100X.VC? If you have a ready pitch deck, and happy to kind of evaluate and come back to you. Great. So I think I'm done with time. So I'll take this 1 minute left, and I'll give that to Nishtay to kind of conclude. And and feel free to reach out to Nishtay for any questions you might have for 100X. If you have a pitch deck, please email it to me on pitch@100X.VC.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, sir. I will now like to thank everyone who's made it over here on a Saturday evening. Thank you so much for giving us your precious time. From Favcy, if you guys weren't at the start of the bit itself, I just wanted to introduce Favcy once more. We work with non-tech idea stage founders and I mean, help them create the digital product or the digital platform. So if your idea is on the digital side, we'll co-build the product, we'll fund the product creation along with you itself. If you want us to also evaluate, to send us pitch decks across on what you're thinking about making on idea stage, we're more than happy to hear you out. You can send it across to creator@favcy.in. Raghav from my team has already messaged a bunch of you guys to on that particular front. I also would like to thank all the sponsors and partners that we have over here. So Amazon AWS, Circlework, your Echai, Startcom, Startup News FII, Network Capital. So all of the guys who've helped us reach out to a beautiful audience that has come over here today, I would really like to thank them today itself. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shashank sir, again.
Take care, guys. All the best. Bye.
Bye.